All right, everybody. Thank you for letting me get all of the technical stuff out of the way. I am Dr. Jeff, and tonight I am extremely blessed. I have four guests on tonight. We're supposed to have five. Dr. Brett Brimhall could not make it, so I have four amazing guests on with me tonight. If you do not have a notebook and a pen, run out and grab one really quick from wherever you're at because you're going to want it because this is going to be kind of an unprecedented type of presentation. It is not going to be our typical Thursday night overview, but this is going to be an open and frank discussion with some absolute amazing people. So this is me. Most of you know me as Dr. Jeff. I have been in LifeVantage now a little over a year. Um, I started in July of 2024, and about 2 months ago, I was selected to this amazing group of people that are on the screen, the Scientific Advisory Board. We have three of them on here with me tonight, and then one of my good friends, one of my special guests, also on with us tonight. So this is going to be an amazing presentation. So let me make some quick introductions. So tonight on here with me, I have Dr. Melody Rodarte. She is from Arizona. She has been selected the best doctor in top doctors in obesity medicine 2017, 2019, 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25. She's a fellow DO. She has been on the Scientific Advisory Board now for several years, is one of the strong anchors on that board, and we're just blessed to have her on with us tonight. We have probably the longest person in LifeVantage that's on this call tonight, who I got to meet personally and share some conversations with on the cruise this summer to Alaska. But we got Dr. Nancy Bryan, who is a pharmacist, director of pharmacy masters in molecular biology, a PhD in pharmacology. She has been on the Scientific Advisory Board and one of the formulators of our products here in LifeVantage. I have my good friend, Dr. Gail Pearson from New Zealand, started her life as a anesthetist or anesthesiologist, has transformed over into more functional medicine, also a member of the Scientific Advisory Board. And then I needed to round this out with somebody that has a little different background. So I invited my good friend Charlie Maddox. He's a nurse practitioner, but his specialty is psych. And one of the things I love about Charlie is he's a veteran, and he gives back to the veterans. He does a lot of work with depression and with PTSD. Does things like ketamine infusion, and I want to see how he's using LifeVantage in his practice. So let me go ahead and get started. I want to start out talking, and there's our guest. There is our beautiful panel tonight. I'm going to try to get Brett on with us in 2 weeks. I'm doing these every 2 weeks, so I'm going to try to get Brett on with me, him and I, 2 weeks from tonight. So I want to be truly transparent. We absolutely have a motive tonight. I want to flip your paradigm, the ideas of what root cause of medicine is, and how root cause for almost all major health conditions is something that we can treat without medication. And before I get started, I have to do disclosures. We're going to talk about probably not so much about income, but a little bit at the end. But we're going to talk about our products, the LifeVantage products, which we call activators. They are not evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and they are not intended to cure, treat, prevent, or mitigate any diseases. So now all that's out of the way. So I'm going to talk about stress. Stress is a part of all of our lives. We have 185 people on this call. I want you to go ahead and go in the chat box and tell me, out of these four things that are on the screen: financial career stress, social media stress, health and diet, and technology, which one of these stresses is the one that is causing the most harm in your life? What is the one that is really causing you difficulty in your life? So let's talk about stress as a silent epidemic. When stress becomes chronic, it attacks every part of our life. It starts attacking every one of our cells, not just stress in our brain, but it's going to attack our body on a cellular level, what we like to refer to as oxidative stress. And when this becomes chronic, it leads to disease processes. And we know that oxidative stress isn't a buzzword. We know that there are over 200 diseases, diabetes, neurologic disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, obesity, cardiovascular disease. All of these disease processes are linked to oxidative stress. And here's a diagram just showing what some of these disease processes are. Even eye problems like macular degeneration linked to oxidative stress, aging process, skin wrinkles, dermatitis, things like that, also linked to oxidative stress. So the first question that I'm going to pose, I think we have 5 or 6 questions tonight that I want to pose. And here's the first one. We know that oxidative stress is linked to 200 chronic diseases. From your clinical experience, what signs or lab markers do you use to show your patients that they have an issue with oxidative stress? And I'm going to throw this out first to Dr. Rodarte.
Well, thanks, Dr. Jeff, for having me on this. This is exciting
Well,
because
thanks for doing this. I don't know if we've ever, I mean, since I've been around, which is a little over a year, we have not done something like this. And now that I have some great people on the scientific advisory board and I was appointed, now I have some people I can reach out to. So I'm excited, and obviously people are excited because we just broke over 200 participants on this call. So this is amazing. Uh, so let me see how you deal with somebody that comes in. Obviously, you've transitioned from traditional medicine to a more functional approach. You're
yes.
full in LifeVantage. So when somebody comes in and you want to start talking to them about changing their lifestyle, how do you show them that they have oxidative stress?
I do on all my new patients a really comprehensive lab panel. So, because I want them to see as that kind of the first slides that you were showing, like I'm going to see where it's ending up in them. So my basic stuff might have their SED rate, their CRP, for inflammatory markers. More specific would be their heart specific one, which is called cardiac CRP. I'm looking at their A1C, their fasting insulin. There's a lot of different markers to look at. Cholesterol, for what stress looks like in their body. And so because I do obesity medicine, I'm looking, for those types of inflammatory markers too. So I don't want to be too clinical on here, but yeah, I think people get about, I don't know, 30 different labs and they can get it. They don't have to go to a specialty lab. I would use SonoraQuest, LabCorp as well, run things through their insurance if needed.
And that was
But
my question. Most of the time they're covered by insurance.
yep, most of the time these basic ones are covered by insurance. And guess what? Most people are fatigued, and they get stress, and you can just code it that way and get it taken care of and look at the whole person. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to switch it over and I'm going to go to my friend Charlie Maddox. Charlie, you deal mostly with psych patients. I know that you do also some weight loss and some hormones and things like that. How are you in your psych patient looking at oxidative stress, and are you offering that as a treatment for some of their mental health issues?
Well, really, when patients come in, I do labs too. We have to do labs even in psych, believe it or not, and especially with hormones. So, um, you know, it's incorporated into even if we don't do labs and the patient comes in, just the conversation alone can get things started about oxidative stress. I mean, low energy. How many people are depressed and have low energy? They can't sleep.
How many
Or
people have
just
low energy and it causes them to be depressed?
so about all
That's
my
the
patients
other,
that come in.
yeah, that's the other side of that are
I
we,
would say there's maybe 5% of my patients that come in that don't have complaints about sleep and sleep and low energy levels, and it's there's not very many that come in that don't complain about that. So, but homocysteine levels too, homocysteine levels and vitamin D. How many people have low vitamin D lately? It's like, what's going on? I mean, everybody's got low vitamin D, it seems like.
Yeah, and
But
and the studies are pretty strong. And I'm going to talk a little bit about PubMed in a little bit, but the studies are strong, showing that high oxidative stress levels. Now we know, we always use the fact that 200 is about 220 different diseases are linked to oxidative stress. And we know that one of the things is oxidative stress downregulates most of our hormones. So it's down regulating things like thyroid hormone, it's down
right,
regulating human growth hormone, it's down regulating GLP-1, it's down regulating our vitamin levels. So yeah, absolutely a link. And as these things go down, then things like depression kick in.
yeah. Um,
So America's not that different than New Zealand. And I got in trouble last time I had Dr. Gale on. I said she was from Australia. Apparently, Australians and New Zealanders have a little battle. And so she's from New Zealand. And so are things any different in New Zealand than they are in America, Gail?
Well, it's interesting, Jeff, because what I see is I get people who come to me with symptoms. And often they're people who come to me with symptoms of low energy, poor sleep, just really feel wiped out. But previously, they've been to their doctor, they've been to their general physician, and all of their lab tests are normal. Their blood pressure is normal. And they say, listen, I've had all these normal things, but I feel like absolute rubbish. What is going on? And so then that gives me a segue in talking about what's happening at the cell, what's happening in your body's machinery that's actually going wrong here, because something is going wrong. And I call them modern day ills, because we did not have this sort of thing 50 years ago, didn't exist. So I tend to see it the different way. I don't do the labs first. I get them when they've had their labs, and all of a sudden they come to me with the symptoms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've heard me speak many times, and so you threw out that 50-year stat that I always love to look at. And if we go back, so we're in 2025, it is hard for me to believe that 50 years ago was 1975. Now I know I'm old enough to remember 1975. 1975, I would have been 13. I just celebrated my 63rd birthday on Monday of this week. So I remember 1975. And here's some of the things I remember. I came from a small town in Pennsylvania that had about 8,000 people in it. And I can remember two people that were obese, a brother and a sister. They were probably 5 or 6 years older than me. They were in a band. He played drums, she played guitar and sang, but they were the only obese people that I knew. And they're both deceased. So that tells you something. But also, if we look at statistics, pediatric cancer was only 0.2%. It's 1.7% now. Autism was about 1 in 10,000 children. It's now 1 in 31. Um, Early menopause almost wasn't heard of. Men needing testosterone therapy almost wasn't heard of. So what's changed? Mostly our diets, mostly ultra high processed foods. So yeah, these are modern ails. These are things that really did not exist 50 years ago. I'm going to bring in my good friend, Dr. Nancy. I think if you've been in LifeVantage more than a minute, you know Dr. Nancy. Nancy, you were around when formulating some of our products that we're all now talking about. Tell me how that came about and what you were looking at when this was happening.
Well, first, I hope that you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yay. I'm so good. Because I can tell you that thing about what bothers you the most. Technology is definitely my stress. Okay.
Yeah, it only becomes my stress when I have to I do these once a week, but Rachel Picaric actually texted me about 10 minutes ago and said, do not forget to hit record, because I've done that before. And so, she had to reach out and remind me, because obviously at 63, maybe I'm a little slower than I was 20 years ago. But
Yeah, well, wait till you're 71. Trust
so
me,
tell
I
me
always,
about.
yeah, so you asked me the question of what I've been seeing from back in the beginning of pharmacy when I first got out of school to what I see now, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
It's really interesting because my first job was working for Eli Lilly. It was a pharmaceutical company. And, back then things were pretty simple. Really, a good majority of people weren't on that very many medications. However, I will tell you that back then we didn't, as you said, have all the processed foods. We didn't have the stresses of technology. And I tell people all the time, if there's some signal going to some satellite out in the middle of space and it's coming back down so that I can be on this call on my iPad in the middle of nowhere, you know what? It's going through my body too.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even begin to know yet what some of the things are going to be from that. And so for me, having experienced my own problems with a gene defect in my family and watching several people in my family pass away, for me, seeing the difference of how my body responded once oxidative stress was becoming better controlled made such a huge impact in me that it allowed me to continue doing what I do. And as a result of it, one of the things I was very grateful for is that we have leaders in our company and in our corporate offices that listen to us. And I always had a passion for something that we now call our daily wellness, where there were certain nutrients that I always believed were helpful to begin with. They weren't at the level of the nutrigenomics of our NRF1 and NRF2, but we knew, especially those of us that all went through COVID and all the things, that things like vitamin C have a role. And many of those things that made a big impact were the minor nutrients that we just don't get in our food sources anymore. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is we're just not getting those things. And that's why we need to have them.
No, absolutely. We're absolutely seeing that. And I agree with you. I think, I think the daily wellness product is something that's often overlooked, but I think it's also should be right up there with our key activators. There's absolutely.
And the other thing I do want to bring out is that I have been very passionate for a very, very long time in regard to gut health. That has been a big part of everything that I've believed in and looked at from a very early time in pharmacy and pharmacology. And I'm so thrilled to see where we're coming along with this.
And we're really coming along with it with the partnership and bringing LoveBiome on board. If anybody was on the call on Monday night, you can see how amazing this venture is going to be. And if you're going to be in Dallas next week, it's going to change the whole way that we look at gut health, because gut is really our second brain. I mean, everything in the body is controlled by our gut. So this is going to be a huge addition to the LifeVantage family. I'm going to skip through this slide. I'm going to go to this one because these are everyone knows I love statistics. So these are some of my new favorite statistics on stress. So stress is really becoming an epidemic. So 33% of Americans say they feel extreme stress, and 77% say that stress is impacting their physical health. 43% of Americans suffer from adverse health effects of stress. Up to 90% of doctor visits are driven by stress-related problems. And 31% of adults say that stress is our biggest health concern right now. And so when we look at these statistics, we know that it is an issue. 38% are affected by money stress. I'm looking at some of the stuff in the chat, and these go across the lines. 1 of 3 says they're stressed out by their family. 30% say it's from work. When we look at PubMed, we look at, if we look at oxidative stress, and this was all the way back early on, there weren't many articles, but if we look at it now, there's about 375,000 articles relating oxidative stress to disease. So my next question is going along these lines. So most clinicians outside of LifeVantage focus on antioxidants such as vitamin C, CoQ10, alpha lipoic acid, but few talk about turning on the body's own antioxidant switch. They don't talk about activators. So how would you, we'll start off, I'm going to start off with you, Nancy, because you're already here. How would you explain to the general public the difference between supplementation and activation? And I think this is important. We have 218 people on this call, and if you're already in LifeVantage, and if you're on the call for the first time, this is your first LifeVantage call ever, is hearing this group, I want you to go ahead and drop a 3 in the chat box. But so for everyone that's been in LifeVantage, they're going to be asked this question. Well, what's the difference between supplementation and activation? Nancy?
Well, you know what? One of the things I've learned being a scientist is trying to keep it simple for everybody. Because you know what, it's so difficult for those of us that are trained, and I loved what Melody had to state earlier, and trying not to get things too scientific. And so really, I think for me, the easiest way to describe the difference between supplementation and activation is supplementation is where we've been since the 40s, 50s, and 60s, of taking large amounts of things that we thought we needed and shoving them into the body and hoping that somehow together they're going to be the things that our body needs. Versus activation, which is tiny amounts of specific things blended specifically that actually turn on our own genes, our own body's ability to do specific functions, because our body knows so much more about what to do. And the most important part is it allows for biofeedback. So for me, that's the biggest thing. And I think to just keep it simple, it's take it to make it. I love that our marketing people came up with that. Take it to make it. You take tiny amounts of specifically blended things to activate very specific pathways in our body to do what it's supposed to versus shoving the pathway.
Absolutely. And we know, those of us that are in clinical medicine, we know that the majority of the supplements we take are never even absorbed. So, that system doesn't work very well. Often you have to give bigger doses to make sure you get enough absorbed. I'll go to one of my clinicians. I'll go to Dr. Melody. How do you explain it to your patients?
I love how Dr. Nancy talked about it, and that's what I talk about with my patients, is like supplementation a lot of times is the old way of doing things, but it can be needed, especially if you're deficient in certain nutrients, because our food is devoid of good calories and minerals and everything. So sometimes you're going to have to supplement. But what we know now is activation is so important, and it's more powerful. So there's like one slide when I first learned about LifeVantage, is like you can't eat tons and tons of blueberries to reduce your free radicals, right? But if you take one dose of a Protandim, you're neutralizing 1 million free radicals at a time. And from
a million per second.
Per second.
Not know that statistic. So the statistic is you're neutralizing 1 million free radicals per second. So you're neutralizing about 8.6 trillion free radicals in a day. And I'm glad that you brought up blueberries, because in order to neutralize 1 million free radicals with blueberries, you would have to eat 220 pints a day just to neutralize 1 million. What Protandim can do in 1 second. So
think of the caloric intake of that. I would rather I'd rather take almost a non-caloric item to get that result. Yeah.
So I guess that might be our quiz question in the chat. If somebody can throw it in, how many calories are in 220 pints of blueberries? I don't have a clue. Somebody can probably do the math. I'm going to ask one question that I don't have it written as a question, but I just want to see what everyone thinks. For the 3 other clinicians, and then I'll give my answer fourth. What vitamin deficiency do you see most in your practice? Melody?
Vitamin D.
Yeah. Charlie?
Sorry, vitamin D by far.
Yeah, okay. Gail?
Often vitamin D, but also zinc and magnesium.
Yeah. And mine's vitamin D. So here's what I'm telling everybody. This is the reason I brought it up is everyone needs to make sure that they're getting enough vitamin D, because low vitamin D leads to depression. It leads to fatigue. Obviously, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. It leads to soft, brittle bones. So vitamin D is important. Everyone is deficient in it. The lab tests that you get through the labs, their numbers are too low. So you actually have to be, you have to look at what an optimal level is, not just what a normal level is. But you're absolutely right. There's a huge problem with vitamin D deficiency. Let's go to my next question. The next question is similar to the last one. This is going to call out kind of the rest of the physicians that are not LifeVantage people. Why do you think physicians keep treating symptoms with prescriptions when the real problem is cellular dysfunction? If oxidative stress is the root cause of aging, inflammation, metabolic collapse, and over 220 diseases, why isn't every practice in the world addressing this first? I'll go with Dr. Gale.
Dr. Jeff, I'm afraid that, and I don't like to say this, but a lot of doctors are a bit slow on the uptake, and a bit slow to looking at alternative ways of healing. We know that the body has incredible powers to heal itself, and you've got to look at things differently. We have different diseases, different symptoms. We've got to have a different approach. Now, just going back to the previous slide, when you're talking about the vital ingredients like CoQ10, vitamin C, I had this image of a basketball team. Now, basketball team players each individually have a great pedigree, don't they? They play well. They play well on themselves, but they can never win a game.
Right.
You put them together with the whole team, and they've got winning games, and that's activation. Activation is a whole basketball team making you win, making your cells win. So I hope I answered the question. Yeah.
Do you think that how long do you think it will take for the paradigm shift to happen where they start teaching this in medical school?
Well, going on this,
they
are introducing oxidative stress now in medical school, which I think is an absolute paradigm shift. So the new medical students I'm talking to say we are talking about oxidative stress. My experience in anesthesia has shown, even though I was ahead of the wave, it took 5 to 10 years for the general medical population to catch up and to make it standard practice. And I've repeated this with drugs, with equipment, with monitoring again and again. And when you are ahead of the wave like this, you have to give people time to think about it and look at things in a totally different way, because we're turning medicine on its head. We're healing from the inside out and not the outside in. That is a huge paradigm shift for people to cope with.
Do you think that it's going to be 10 more years until it's
I hope it's more like 5. I really hope. And maybe the way the world is moving at the moment with the technology, with the research, with people getting out there and getting the message out there, and the fact that we have no solutions for what we are currently dealing with, maybe they're going to have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit quicker. But it's not easy at the moment.
Yeah. Melody, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, what's frustrating is I think it might take past 10 years, because if I look at, coming out of medical school.
When did you come out of, we don't want to throw your age out there, but when did you come out of medical school?
I can say 1975 was a great year. I was born in 1975, so there you go.
You're the same age as my wife. You're the exact same age as my wife.
I just hit 50. Yeah.
Okay.
And
obviously you knew nothing about, when you came out of medical school, you knew nothing about oxidative stress.
Out of medical school, no, but I started doing wound care, so I learned about it pretty quickly. So I started doing hyperbaric medicine and wound care in 2005 and 2006. So that was a term that we were using, but nobody else was using. So when I was introduced to this in 2014, they couldn't believe that I understood it. But when I started to talk about it to my colleagues, they were still like, a lot of them didn't know what I was talking about. So I think it's just because of what I was already looking into regenerative medicine and things like that early on that I understood the term oxidative stress. But And if you think about it, I think those some of us are on this that go to like the A4M conferences or functional medicine conferences.
Mhm.
We've heard it like the last 6, 7, 8, 10 years, but it's still not, if you go to one of your traditional conferences, it's not brought up still.
Right.
It,
Yeah,
it
you
really
still don't.
isn't. So my goal is that it would be, but, and I feel like I don't see the deer in the headlights as much when I talk about it, but it's still there.
Yeah, I think it's in some of the lay literature, you know, in magazines and stuff. You're starting to see it a little bit more, but it's still, you know, it's still I don't think accepted by, you know, most traditional physicians. I think Charlie's probably the latest to come out of training. Did you hear anything about oxidative stress in when you were going through your NP training?
Some, but not. I mean, I was in a psych program. My background was in, ICU and ER, and then I went through a psych program there. So we talked about it a little bit, but it wasn't really not a lot. I mean, we're you know taught to look at symptoms, and we're too focused on symptoms, and not, I was going to say a minute ago, you were talking about activation. I tell my patients that supplementation is like filling your car with gas. Activation is like tuning it up, you know. So they kind of understand it a little bit that way, but no, it was it wasn't until I really got into LifeVantage that I really started researching and learning all about this. So
Yeah, it's the same with me. I mean, I had heard of it before I started with LifeVantage a little over a year ago, but then as you know, as I started looking at the science, you know, then it became really clear to me. Nancy, you know, you're more on the science and development side of all this, not the clinical side. What do you think it's going to take to get this into our med school curriculums?
Oh gosh, that is a really tough question. I'm with Melody. I've watched this progress so slowly for so long. Um, but I will say this: I do think, thanks to technology now, although it can be the reason for our vitamin D to go down and all of our other issues, it also is one of the reasons we're learning so much faster. So I think I'm seeing things starting to develop more at a warp speed, if you will. So it's my hope that we're going to start seeing this within, the next few years. In the last few years, I think we've seen some really astronomical jumps. But I think that the difficulty is that it becomes very tough for people to know the differences between what things they should do and then all the marketing things that are out there. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. And I'm sure as physicians, that's one of the difficulties they have. I can't imagine in today's world. I mean, back in the day, you would go to the doctor, and when you went to the doctor, you would tell them the things you were on, and maybe you were on a multivitamin or maybe on something small. But in today's world, there's so many people getting so many things off the internet and from markets and from all different places, that I think that sometimes that becomes some of the challenge too, because not everything is as equipped to deal with this inflammation as we are. And so as a result of that, I think that sometimes it's presenting more and more challenges from that perspective. And I'm hoping that, down the road, people are able to get enough from the medical system to start merging. And I appreciate people like Dr. Melody, who's taken the time to learn all the functional medicine parts along with all the other parts. And the last thing that I'll say is that back in the day, and again, this age does have some benefits. Back in the day, the Doctor of Osteopathy program was, I think, much more in tune at that time with understanding things than maybe the regular MD programs were. They understood nutrients more and tox more. And so that's one aspect I'm liking to see merged.
Somebody still has their microphone on. If we could possibly, oh, there it goes.
You got the vacuum out just to get your spider? Yes, and I can't.
All right, I'm gonna the next question I have, so I think that probably the most misunderstood, it's interesting, back when I was in medical school, which was 30 years ago, we learned about like cells and the organelles and what they did, but we never learned how they could be
Now I'm gonna
effective
talk to you while I
in
have
treatment.
Whatever.
Daniel, Shears, can you please mute your mic?
We never learned about how we could treat it. And so we talk about burnout, we talk about brain fog, we talk about depression like they're mental problems. But I think that if we really look at the science, most of it is probably mitochondrial fatigue. We're not making cellular energy. If the cell can't make ATP, which is the source of energy for the cell, for the body, then you can't expect to focus metabolism, you can't have good metabolism, mood, or function. Do we feel that it's time to stop labeling people as lazy and depressed and really start looking at fixing their mitochondrial dysfunction? Melody.
Heck yes. I'm like, I'll unmute first and talk about it. It doesn't, I love this discussion, like all of it. This is so important. I think if we go back to your question 3, the reason why so many doctors aren't talking about this is there's not a drug approved to reduce oxidative stress. For those of us who have been in medicine for 20 or 30 years, we were taught, and I think it's a little bit changing, who funds us, right? Are those drug reps I mean, I was a chief resident. I had to know who all the pharmaceutical reps were, like, so that I could schedule all the Friday meetings. They were paying for our lunches. They brought in things when I got them into practice. I needed them to come to the office to tell me what was new, if I wasn't going to a conference. So we end up needing to discuss this with people who are on this call, or those who are looking for things to, what can I do to better my health? So they're going to say, hey, I heard about this oxidative stress, and some of their physicians are going to know about it and some aren't, but hopefully it kind of encourages those physicians out there and health providers to go, I think I need to know about this if I don't. And then hopefully it brings up like, oh my gosh, this causes mitochondrial dysfunction. And what this last 5 years has done when it's come to people with long, I think I'm allowed to say it on this, long COVID, is they've understood, there's literature, it disrupted the mitochondria. And we know that we need to help the mitochondrial function. And in the past, we only thought of mitochondrial issues with maybe neurodegenerative diseases, right? And it was like the first thing that they were thinking of at first were, some of these major medications that had all of these side effects. And so not a ton has come to light. Like think of Michael J. Fox, you would think with all his money, you would have the best medications out. People think about that, but there just isn't for Parkinson's. We're still using things that are
Ozzy
30 years old, Yeah. So when we talk about this, no matter, I love that all of us are in different fields. That one of the main things that we have to talk about is mitochondrial dysfunction and what are we going to do to reverse it? Because you'll start to reverse the energy issues that are causing then, the cellular dysfunction. And if the cell's not functioning, depending on how it's expressed in you, it might look like, depression, anxiety, fatigue, you name it, palpitations, rash, we can go down the whole list.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting, I think, now that we can treat the cell, and I've heard Lisa Barnes has said this numerous times on calls, both public calls and scientific advisory board calls, that, if you can have a healthy cell, then you can have healthy tissue. If you have healthy tissue, then you have healthy organs. If you have healthy organs, then you have a healthy human being. And so it all starts at that cellular level. And now we have products in LifeVantage. We have products that can treat patients on the cellular level, whether it's oxidative stress, whether it's mitochondrial dysfunction, whether it's cellular healing with things like NAD, those are all available. Because my question talks about brain fog and depression, Charlie, and I'm going to pose this question a little different to you. If somebody comes in with depression and you look at their health, overall health and wellness, and you think that they have a problem with oxidative stress, and you talk to them about treating the oxidative stress with an activator like NRF2 instead of using one of the prescription antidepressants, do you think you're setting yourself up for a medical legal issue?
That's well, I'm very open and honest with my patients when I talk about LifeVantage products because I am a distributor for it, and you do have to be careful, but you can't promise that it's going to help. But I can't promise that those antidepressants are going to help either.
Right. Do you
So,
think that it should be one of the first line treatments in depression?
I mean, I use it as one of my first lines, and I don't recommend it forever. I don't give it to everyone that comes in. But when people come in, it's really they have to really be open to it when they come in, and it just depends on the person. And it's like the older generation. I
Right.
mean, like Keith's parents, they're like in their 80s. It's like, I've recommended them to take Protandim, and they won't do it because their doctor told them not to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great
Hard to
segue.
get them to change. And I think it's as unfortunately, as the generations die off, it's changing. I think the paradigm shift is coming, but when you tell someone, and how many patients of mine have I put on Protandim and they've gone into their oncologist or whatever, and then tell them not to take the Protandim.
I had that happen when I had my heart issue last November. Um, I went to the University of Florida and I told them about my Tri-Synergizer and the fact that I was taking that on a daily basis. I had it with me, and they actually locked it up so I wouldn't take it because they were afraid how it would interfere with my medications.
Right.
And it's like, so I'm not allowed to eat either because these are all plant-based food products that are in these activators. So I can't even eat food because
Right.
it's going to mess up my medications, and they didn't know how to.
Right.
They had no idea how to respond to me. We
But
haven't
since
talked to
we
Gail in a few minutes. Gail, how do you think? Do you practice medicine differently, knowing that these can be used in lieu of the big pharma drugs?
Absolutely. I have a different practice because obviously anesthetic practice, I use drugs to induce unconsciousness and muscle relaxation and things. So this is quite a different step. I love mitochondria. Okay, my mitochondria are our lifeblood, and the organs that require the most energy, like the heart and the brain, have thousands per cell, thousands of mitochondria. When you activate a specific mitochondrial pathway, like the NRF1 pathway, what you're doing is you're providing a battery to a torch. Okay, so that battery makes a torch shine. If you're adding NRF1 and NRF2, you're going upwards. You're not just having a little battery, you're having multiple batteries. Then that torch is going to shine brighter. So that's how I try and sort of explain the importance of taking both of those together, because to me, they come as a duo. You do not isolate mitochondrial function by itself, because remember, in the process of producing ATP, you produce oxygen-free radicals. And what do oxygen-free radicals do? They create oxidative stress. So to me, it's really important that we reduce that oxidative stress and then we enhance the mitochondria. So to me, it's a double bundle always, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think so that's a good segue, I think, for my next slide. So for those of you, and I was looking in the chat, there's probably about a dozen people on this call that this is their first call ever for LifeVantage, which I think is great. It's absolutely amazing that you're hearing from some of the best experts in LifeVantage. But you need to know where this started. So this started in 2005. It actually probably started before that because I always like to throw out there in 1997, was the start of probably one of the biggest studies ever, which was called the Human Genome Project. So the Human Genome Project went from 1997, it was published in 2005, and it talked about how genetic pathways and how our genome can affect our health. And this product came out at the end of the Human Genome Project. And when it was first released in 2005, ABC News got a hold of some of the information and some of the hype that people were getting better and it was controlling oxidative stress. They were feeling more healthy, and they wanted to disprove it. They wanted to disprove it in the biggest way. And so they got one of their top reporters, John Quiones, and they put him on the product. They put him on Protandim NRF2, and they had him go see Dr. Joe McCord, who is the scientist that had been studying this molecule, superoxide dismutase, since the late 1960s, devoted his entire career to anti-aging. And he went and interviewed him, and he went to his own doctor, and he had blood drawn, and lo and behold, over the formation of this investigative report, he started feeling better. And he thought he started looking better. And so instead of it being a hit piece saying it was bogus and it didn't work, it was very complimentary. Problem was, in 2005, we didn't have anything called YouTube. So for those of you that have never seen it, make sure you Google, go on YouTube, put in Protandim, ABC News Prime Time, and you get to watch the video. Back in 2005, we didn't have YouTube. So the only story we had was John Quiones' story. We couldn't show it to other people. So the company in 2009 went to direct sales or network marketing, and that's how this all started, with a little yellow pill. If we look at where it's gone from there, we look that it's 5 synergistically combined herbs. There's 7 US patents. There's 10 plus international patents, 32 peer-reviewed published studies on our product alone, not on the little pieces, not on what makes up the products, the ingredients, but on our product alone. It shows that it can lower oxidative stress 40% in 30 days, 70% in 90 days, activate 600 or more survival gene pathways, and it protects the DNA from your cells. It is truly the anti-aging supplement. There's no better anti-aging product that is known to man. It raises, people will go to their doctor, even conventional doctors will sometimes do glutathione injections. Well, this raises glutathione levels 300%. So why take the injection that lasts 1 or 2 days when you can take something, a little yellow pill once a day, that will keep it elevated for a lifetime? When we look at this cell activation, as I said, 2005 started with Protandim NRF2. We've been talking a lot about mitochondria. So 2016, Protandim NRF1, the one that boosts mitochondrial function. NAD 2019. NAD is actually one of my favorites because NAD, great for brain health, but one of the few known benefits of NAD is it actually mobilizes stem cells from your bone marrow to your peripheral circulation. So it pulls stem cells out of your bone marrow, allows them to circulate through your body and go to areas that need regeneration, that need healing. So if you've had a heart attack, it'll send stem cells there to heal the heart. If you have a laceration somewhere, it'll send stem cells to help heal that laceration. 2013 liquid collagen, our collagen supplement, great for increasing collagen growth in the body. It's just not a supplement. It's not a supplement like if you take the powdered form of collagen. This is a collagen activator that will increase type 1 collagen 100% in 8 weeks. So think about collagen. One of the biggest places in collagen, your blood vessels, the walls are made out of collagen. Your joints, the articular cartilage, is made out of collagen. So this will help increase collagen production in your body. And then in 2025, actually a year ago this weekend, 10/12/2024 was when, so that actually, that date's wrong, 2024, 10/12/2024 was the launch of the Mind-Body GLP-1 activator, raising the body's GLP-1 levels. So the next question, I'm going to poll everybody that's all my guests today, that if you had one to pick from that list of 5 activators, you could only pick one product from the previous slide to have in your office all the time, what product would that be? Melody, unmute.
Protandim NRF2.
Yeah. Okay. Charlie, unmute.
Protandim NRF2.
Gail, unmute.
Everybody knows I will be on protandim.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that, you know, I've been quoted on numerous calls, and Rachel always gives me a hard time. And actually, you see that it's her name that under my picture because I'm on her Zoom channel. But I say it should be in the water. I say you should put NRF2 in our water. Everybody should drink it, and population-wise, we'd be a lot more healthy. So I definitely agree that that's the one that
Everybody else is
needs to
saying
be
the
on.
same thing. Everybody's saying that.
Whoever's not muted, could you please mute yourself? And then my last question, this is how we're going to wrap it up. We're almost at 1 hour. So most of you know that I love statistics. And so I'm going to pull up 4 statistics that I use in my Thursday night overview every 2 weeks. And these are my 4 favorite statistics about life in America. 82% of Americans are trying to lose weight. 42% of Americans are considered obese. 67% of American diet is ultra high processed foods. And 57% of American families are living to paycheck. If you had to pick one of those statistics, which one is your favorite and why? Charlie.
I'll have to say the last one, what was it? 57%.
Yeah, I'll
living
go back to that. So
50 living paycheck to paycheck.
yeah. Why is that your favorite?
I don't know. Because it's true.
Yeah, it is true.
It is very true.
And it's a problem. And the reason I bring that up and the reason that it's on the slide is, you know, we're talking about how wonderful these products are and how wonderful, you know, they can be for your overall health and well-being. But there is also a financial side. So for the 10 or 12 people that are brand new, there's a financial side to LifeVantage, and we're really not going to talk about it other than the few minutes that I'm going to talk about this slide. That if people are suffering, we know that they're suffering from their health, but if they're suffering because they're living paycheck to paycheck, 57% of Americans, you know, a lot of those single moms out there that are suffering. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you lose your job, you're 90 days away from bankruptcy. That's a problem. And so LifeVantage can help your well-being, also help your financial well-being. Melody, pick your favorite statistic and tell us why.
The first one, 82% of Americans are trying to lose weight.
And you do obesity medicine, so you're the expert here. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that and about the Mind Body product.
You know, the reason why I picked that statistic is because it's so true. We know that 2/3 of America is actually overweight and obese. So that's why we see that so many are trying to lose weight. And I truly believe if people are looking at better health, they know that they're going to have to lose weight because you're going to have to then lose the ultra processed, food diet. You're going to have to get up and move. You're going to have to sleep better. So like I see it as taking care of the whole person, and that's really important to me. I love our MB system. I will tell you, not everybody wants to wait, but it works if you will take the time and make the changes. It's an incredible way of activating the GLP-1 process in your own body so that you're not having to supplement it. So it's a powerful tool, especially when it's combined with the NRF2, our Protandim NRF2. I'll throw in an NRF1, but I've got to sometimes just layer it in so people don't feel overwhelmed. But it's taking care of that gut-brain axis that we talked about it in earlier slides and discussions. There's a connection there. And so we're able to have a product that is really helping people get better control of glucose homeostasis. We'll say it that way because everyone's got poor glucose homeostasis.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm kind of become the poster child. I started on the Mind Body product on October 12th, 2024. So I've started on it 1 year and 4 days ago. I am down 102 pounds. in that 1 year period of time. So there's no doubt that if you give it time to work and you cut the ultra high processed foods out of your diet and you use the NRF2 to help stabilize your hormone levels, yeah, you can safely lose weight this way without all the side effects that are associated with the injectable GLP-1s. I want to hear from Nancy because these statistics may mean different to her because she's not in clinical medicine. So she's not thinking about her patients. She's thinking about kind of the world as a whole. So what's your favorite statistic, Nancy?
Oh gosh, and I apologize for the background noise and
Oh, that's all
whatnot.
right.
I certainly apologize for that. But you know what? I have to say, number 4, living paycheck to paycheck. And you wouldn't think that would come from the pharmacologist. But the
Right.
reason is that paycheck to paycheck and the stress levels that it creates in people, it allows them not to eat good foods. It allows them not to get the exercises they need. It stops them from having all those things. Yes, it's added stress on top of everything else, but it also prevents them from doing a lot of the things that other people might have the abilities to do that they can't. And so I think for me, you know what, in the end, it is about doing everything that Melody talked about. We're talking about the exercise and trying to get the best food sources we can and all those kinds of things. But in the end, if you can't get those things done, and I think we're in that environment right now, I think there's a lot of people that are really hurting. And so for me, when you were asking what's number one importance, there's just no one that shouldn't be on NRF2 to give our bodies
Right.
a fighting chance. And in the process, being able to see what it can do and share it with other people and give them the hope that they can have something besides what they're doing. So for me, definitely the paycheck to paycheck.
Thank you. So before I'm going to bring Gail in a second, but before we get to that, I just want, if you ever go on Facebook and you notice and you find out that I died, it's probably not from a health and well-being thing. I probably got shot because my wife will tell you that we'll be in the grocery store and we'll be in checkout line, and both of the carts, the families in front of us and behind us are just full of processed cereal and frozen pizza and candy and donuts and all the ultra high processed stuff. And I want to ask the families, not in a bad way. I want to say, why is that in your cart? Because I know the answer is because of number 4, that it's what they can afford. A bag of chips is cheaper than a bag of grapes. A frozen pizza is cheaper than a 2-pound beef roast that mom has to cook, and it's faster. That she can get home from work because she's probably working. Both mom and dad are both working, so it's faster. She doesn't have to wait for it to cook. They can throw it in the microwave, throw it in the oven. So I want to ask that question, and obviously my wife doesn't let me because she's afraid that somebody's going to shoot me if I do. The other thing that I do, and it goes back to the very beginning, is if I see a woman with her cell phone in her bra, I will stop and tell them that all the energy that's coming out of the satellite that's going into her phone is going into her breast tissue. And if she doesn't think that that's going to lead to an increased risk of breast cancer, she's only fooling herself. So I will bring it up, and my wife still thinks that somebody's going to shoot me someday. So I'm going to let Gail come in and finish this out. So Gail, these are talking about Americans, but I'm sure the statistics are the same in New Zealand and Australia, probably the same in most contemporary countries, most modern countries. What's your favorite?
Well, we're a little bit behind down in the Antipodean countries, and we're a little bit behind in terms of the amount of processed food that we have. I mean, it's increasing, but for me, it's number 3. I mean, food is the basics, and food is medicine. And if we don't have healthy food, we don't have any of the other things. I have so many people who do have a healthy diet, but they need something more. And what we're offering them is getting the cells right up and functioning to their maximum. And when you use natural products or natural foods, we're just creating something that is it's just so incredibly powerful. So to me, I want to get everybody having healthy food. And that is actually, there are simple ways that you can do it. And I've seen that people switch around completely, growing their own. And
Yeah,
being
no, I absolutely agree.
Mhm.
So we are exactly at 1 hour and 34 seconds. I'm going to close it by asking one last question because I think everybody on the call has talked about it, and Gail's on it now. How much would our overall health in the world change if we got rid of ultra high processed foods?
It would be phenomenal. Look, honestly, it would be phenomenal. All you need to do is to look back at the photos of people on the beach in the 70s.
Mhm.
And that says it all. Have a look at a beach photo of people in the 70s. Have a look at a beach
Obesity
photo of
rate in the
people.
United States in 1975 was 10%. It's now
Yeah.
42. West
Yeah.
Virginia is probably at 50%. So 6 months ago, it was 49.8%. It probably has an obesity rate of 50%. Charlie, if we got rid of all the ultra high processed foods, what would happen to the psych patients that you see?
I would be prescribing a lot less antidepressants than I would be, for sure.
Yeah. Nancy. Melody.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I would even take it where if we could take soda off first. Like
Yeah.
we could even just do it step by step, just for compliance sake for people. Just get rid of where nobody can have a soda and then let's watch and see
Yeah, soda, then maybe
and an
breakfast.
energy drink.
Yeah, soda, then maybe breakfast cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all the breakfast thing, breakfast cereal, Pop-Tarts, the whole gamut that we feed our kids. No, I think it would change life. I mean, it would change obesity, it would change autism, it would change heart disease, it would change neurodegenerative disease. I mean, it would change everything just by getting rid of ultra high processed foods. So to wrap it all up, first of all, I want to thank my four great guests. This was amazing. It was amazing getting input from everybody. I am blessed to have colleagues and people I can call friends that are so intelligent and willing to come on to my calls on Thursday night. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, each and every one of you. If you are new to LifeVantage, if this is the first call that you've ever been on, you heard it from some of the experts, get back to the person that invited you on this call tonight and talk to them about either joining up as a customer if you're looking for your health or well-being, or as a consultant if you're looking about your health and well-being and maybe the financial struggles that a lot of people are going to. I love each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing everyone that's going to Dallas in another week. I'm excited about that. I get to see all my friends from the Scientific Advisory Board. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. And this call's a wrap. Love you guys. Bye-bye.